All right. Welcome to the Low Budget Magic Podcast, recorded from the one seat that I'm allowed to sit in to do homework at my dad's noodle shop. It's Kaiser and Toroyo.
I'm Toroyo.
And I'm Kaiser. Um, this was just something we wanted to do because we want to talk about magic because we're very opinionated about it. And I think this is a great way to actually get our opinions out there.
Yes, so be ready for like a weekly podcast on just random magic topics. Um, I my all my card game experience it just isn't in Magic. I honestly got into card games from Yu-Gi-Oh, and I think that brings like a different type of mindset when it comes to Magic, especially when it comes to the different formats of Standard and Commander.
Exactly, and we're going to be probably like a primarily commander-focused podcast because that's the format that we play in Magic. I came from a background of playing Modern to begin with, and a lot of afterwards like just 1v1 kitchen table Magic. And I think really like the 1v1 aspect has really molded the way that we view Commander and how we build. Not to say that we're not political or social or anything like that when it comes to playing Commander, but rather that it's just in our nature to try and play at our best or build for playing well. And thus, most of this podcast is probably also going to be dedicated to brackets like 3 and 4. Not CEDH because we don't have the budget for that. Or I did used to play CEDH and it just wasn't exactly my cup of tea. So
yeah, I feel like CDH takes a different type of mindset than what we're shooting for. It just kind of goes beyond our purpose. So, but anyway, with that out of the way, our topic for today will be mostly about deck building and just our natural thought process and what we recommend that you look out for and pitfalls you should avoid while making your deck.
exactly. There's a lot of things that go into deck building, and it's honestly really important that if you're trying to play bracket 3 or 4, that you kind of have the understanding that you're playing to win. That's kind of like first and foremost, and that you cannot be upset with your opponents also playing to win. It's just a natural expectation. You're kind of responsible for having and making your own fun, and you need to make sure that if you set up an expectation, you do it. Otherwise, you're going to have issues in what's going on. But yeah, so to move kind of further into it and actually getting to talk about it, one of the first things is that you really need to build for what your commander does for you, kind of first and foremost. Be it if your commander is providing you card draw, providing you ramp, providing you reanimation. In the case of Baitor, you need to make sure that if you have a commander picked out, that it's usually for a specific purpose and it's to do something for you. With Baitor, for example, I have plenty of life-linking creatures, so that way I can get more life and put counters on things, as well as plenty of ways to make myself lose life as well, even including the mana base. I have 11 of my 38 lands can deal damage to me or make me lose life. I can easily just tap out 5 lands, play Baitor, and potentially get up to a 5-drop back if I have the right lands and play to begin with. So you really need to make sure you keep what your commander does in mind.
Gotcha. Fuck, I'm trying to think of what to say. Pause it real quick. My take on that aspect will be my Rafine deck. I mostly built Rafine to take advantage of the multiple draws and the discard effects. As you can see, I have Chasm Skulker and okay, and Bone Miser and Archfiend Ifnir to really take advantage of my the discards that are going on. I have my low drops to make sure that there's always an engine for Rafine. I'm not just like blasting my opponent for one, drawing one, and discarding one every single turn. So I actually don't run that many like high cost resurrection spells. Most of mine are mostly targeted around getting Rafine back because he is just the entire engine for my deck. My deck is mostly built around fishing for whatever Rafine can get me and then taking control of the board from there.
Moving further in, another thing that you need to keep in mind is your curve. Rafine is actually another great example of this, where you have a lot of cheap evasive creatures, either with flying, can't be blocked, or even just when they attack or when they hit, they can draw and discard and things like that. A lot of 1 and 2 drops, so that way you can hopefully have multiple draws going as soon as you've played Rafine, and then once Rafine is attacking, getting bigger and bigger as well. As well as having, of course, quite a few things that are easily okay to discard. Cards like Faithful Mending with Flashback, and being able to fill the yard to utilize like Treasure Cruise and stuff like that. Really anything with like Flashback, or even from the new Spider-Man set with Mayhem, is something that can be looked at, since Rafine gives you that discard outlet right then and there, right away.
Right, and since because most of my creatures are cheap 3-drops, it goes back into my resurrection spell. So if I need my Chasm Skulker back, who is one of my big hitters, or Horrid Shadow Spinner, which allows me to filter through my deck, get big, and gain all that life back, I still have access to those.
Exactly. With Baitor, kind of building with the curve in mind is why I run so many lands. I mean, I've got a 5-drop commander that I want to get out, not necessarily as soon as possible, but definitely I want to be able to try and get out on curve with all these cheap spells that load up the graveyard by milling 3, 4, 5, however many, depending on the spell. And it's really important to be able to also get those out as soon as I can as well. I try to make sure I don't have hardly any tap lands, so that way I'm not taking a turn off to not play a spell when this is a very big late game deck. Once I get to the late game, Baitor is often one of the biggest threats at the table, but I need to get there first. And so once I've gotten there, though, things are going to be a-okay for me. And really, you need to also be concerned about what to do whenever your commander is like not on the battlefield, not being able to provide anything for you, or if it's just been removed or countered. Thankfully, with Baitor, it tends to be pretty easy, since this is a graveyard deck. I've got plenty of recursion spells, and I'm happily going to slam one of those, so that way I can get Baitor back and keep doing Baitor's thing, since he's also a reanimation spell. Baitor is really the best reanimation target when he's in the graveyard, as the sooner I get Baitor back out, the sooner I'm doing other shenanigans as well. The sooner I'm building up my board with the lifelink counters, and the sooner that I'm getting other things back as well, and I'm not just chunking my life total for nothing.
So, my approach usually when I can't have my Rafine on the board is so one thing I do like about Rafine is when if Rafine does get countered or destroyed in some way, Rafine is cheap enough where if my mana curve if it's late a little bit later in the game and my mana curve is good, that she can come back in a later turn, and I don't have to commit too many resources to it, or I just go for one of my cheap res options. Also, a benefit of a natural benefit of my deck is the fact that it does draw, in of itself, even without Rafine, like Looter Ill, Likeness Looter, Shadow Spinner, and stuff of that nature. So even if Rafine is in the grave, I'm not completely dead in the water. I can still cycle through my deck and try to get as many answers as I can to at least get back to my stabilizing position. And I think a few people kind of miss out on just how important just cycling through your deck to see all your options is. So keep that in mind as your deck building, that just getting to as many cards as possible is a good way to...
Drawing cards is good in Commander. You heard it here first.
Oh, wow. It's busted.
But no, you're absolutely right. That's why, in decks that can afford to run mono-color tap lands, I like to run the cycling lands, as, nothing sucks worse than late game you top deck a land when you don't need it, but at least then you can just throw that away to try and get something else. That's what we're saying, it's important to try and have the ability to move through and get through your deck. And
Nobody wants to be a top deck hero.
exactly, yeah. Um, Another thing is that cards should really be put in with a real purpose in your deck. And cards that are working with your game plan should be valued probably a little bit higher than just your general, standard, generic, like, good card. Beator's a fantastic example where Reanimate is probably like the best in class reanimation spell, getting any creature from any graveyard for 1 black, but I also lose life equal to the mana cost. Well, in Beator, that's fantastic. That's pretty much a 2 for 1 with Beator. A 1 mana get 2 creatures back, 1 on a slight delay, is an insane Magic card that would see play anywhere that it could be played. And that's why I'm using it, because I also lose life and it's the best in class. So it fills both notches there of doing something good and progressing the game plan.
So I actually like the fact that we're talking about 2 mono black decks that like my kind of interacts with graveyard, and yours is mostly graveyard based. And we both run Dread Return, but I don't run Reanimate. Mostly because I don't. First of all, I'm not buying Reanimate. Not right now. Not for. And I don't, yeah, but also I don't think I need Reanimate because most of my, like, No One Left Behind gets dropped down to a 1/2. Yeah, it's still it's still 1 more expensive than Reanimate, but also I don't need the pinging from my own life total. That doesn't help me in my game plan whatsoever. Bone Shards, well, no, Bone Shards is a fucking kill spell. What am I talking about? But and also Call a Surprise Witness. Like, in Beator, Call a Surprise Witness would be, like, so ass.
Yeah, like, the thing is that Beator has a very big curve. That's because I'm not trying to cast a good chunk of my creatures. I'm trying just to reanimate them. And I'm trying to throw them in the graveyard directly. And a lot of them are pretty big, chunky boys.
And also, I have my own Reanimate and Unearth, which also allows me to cycle, which then plays back into my discard draw thing.
Exactly. When you're already ahead, you can just cycle Unearth because you don't need it.
Exactly.
And if you do need it, cool. It's also just 1 mana. Whereas Dread Return is something that is kind of like generically good, but fits well in both decks. Because it is a 2 for 1 that only costs 4 mana, because you flash it back with just sack 3 creatures. And both of our decks very easily have the sack 3 creatures. Because I'm already also loading up the graveyard with stuff like Mulch and things like that as well, hitting Dread Return feels like I've drawn a card. An additional card, rather, off of it, rather than it just being something where I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I discarded, or I got rid of that. Same thing for you. It's a completely safe thing to pitch with Rafine, because not only does it give you a counter, it now gives you a way to get Rafine back once she's inevitably trying to be blown up.
You're right.
I do want to pivot with this into another deck of mine, and this is my Living End but in Commander deck. And this is about cards should be put in with a real purpose, and that you shouldn't just put your pet cards in any old random deck. What you should do instead is build a deck that can properly utilize one of your pet cards. My Living End deck is obviously built around Living End. That's Living End and Living Death are 2 of my favorite Magic the Gathering cards. Living Death is also featured in Beator. And it's built very similar, in a similar mindset to Living End in Modern, which is a deck where you have a whole bunch of ways to discard big fatties into the graveyard, and then you cascade into Living End to reanimate all of them and be able to swing out. And so I've built this deck to try and make sure that I'm able to get that off as consistently as I can. Often my early turns are met with me just cycling a big fatty or 2 away each turn, eventually playing maybe a haste enabler, so that way as soon as I do cast one of my cascade spells, I'm getting straight into Living End. And I've got ways to exile people's graveyards in the deck as well, because I'd rather not have the other graveyard player start popping off and going off like crazy, just because I decided I want to pop off and go crazy. So you should very much be conscious of what the pet card is going to be able to do for you and make sure that it actually serves a purpose in the deck. I can't just throw Living End in any old random deck because most of my decks aren't going to have something that will let me cascade into it. And I also don't need to cascade into Living End in every single deck that I built either.
So I actually have a very good story for this. It's about my Green Goblin deck. Because I wanted to... give me 1 second. It's Goblin time!
It is.
And yeah, this is also a play off of It's Morbin time. So, okay, well, I don't have the card pulled up here, but, there's, the card that I wanted to include in this deck is a 5-drop, 4-1 red, 2/5, I believe. And anything with power lowered in it is goaded, and each time a goaded creature is killed. Yes, I forgot. I actually do have a deck for him, so I can just pull him up.
Baloth. Bear Till?
The Entertainer dude.
Yes, this guy right here.
But and I wanted to put him in Green Goblin. I think like flavor wise, just like adding chaos to the board state would be really fun. And also treasure tokens are cool. There's never can't think of one deck that wouldn't like free treasure tokens. But the problem with that is my Green Goblin deck does not have buff spells. My Green Goblin deck is built to, like, as soon as the Goblin is on board, as soon as we're Goblin, it is then to just win from there. I have a bunch of instances and sorceries just to chain my turn as long as I can and generate as much value and mana as I can. So really having a 5-drop, yes, that I can turn into a 3-drop with the effect of Green Goblin, but having a 5-drop, that one, I have to wait for the entire table to go around in order to get like real value from it. I can't buff it in any type of way. As you see, my deck isn't built for that whatsoever. Like, I think this is the only thing that like these are the only 2 things that actually get stronger. I'm not even gonna like swing in with them. Also Vivi, but they don't make anything else stronger. So if my opponents have like just nothing but mana dorks, I'm just gonna tap my mana dork before my battle phase. Or hey, do you mind if my 1/1 hits you? So then the Goblin player doesn't make a flippin' treasure token. So as flavorful and as cool as it could have been, I just had to cut it, and to make sure that my deck can still perform the way I want it to perform and do all the cool things that I want it to do without it feeling all bloated and also making me feel bad, because it's like, it feels really bad when your pet card is your dead card.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like, one of my older pet cards is this card called Druidic Satchel. It lets you like pay some mana and tap it and like discard a card, and then you get some type of effect based off of what you discarded, either like gaining life, put a counter on something, or making like a token or something like that. You can see why early Ethan was really into that.
Yeah.
And I had to cut it because it wasn't doing really actually anything. Like, having to actually just pitch a card for no real reason wasn't very useful. Also, having to still spend mana to do that too, and just get some life for a 1/1 or something like that. Yeah, there's a reason I don't play it anymore. Sometimes your pet cards are just bad. And sometimes you need to run better cards. And you shouldn't be afraid to run generic good cards either when need be. Sometimes it's needed for a strategy. Sometimes you can't do all of the cool synergy things with the pieces that you have, and you have to just use what's good. And that's okay. There are people that we know that are allergic to playing good cards because they want to be a hipster, or they want to seem like, oh, I'm different than everybody else. You can be different than everybody else while still running cards that make your deck work. And if that's what you need to make your deck work, please just run them.
Yes, and honestly, I'm glad Vivi is still on screen, because I think Vivi is a perfect example of this. I'm running a red blue spell slinger deck. Yeah, Vivi's gonna go the fuck in. But I also think that, like, it's not just Vivi is just going in just because Vivi is good. All of Vivi's card text does something that I want. I want the extra mana. Pinging my opponents to death through combo pieces is legitimately my killing plan. As you can see with Magmakin and Vivi itself, and I also have Shadow of the Goblin, wherever the hell that card is, and just pinging through play is my entire ordeal.
So another thing that you should try and keep in mind is that you need to be building your deck and be conscious of how your deck is going to be perceived by your opponents. I think that's honestly something that people really need to think about. A lot of people will think on their best case scenario, or the time where they're just kind of popping off and playing solitaire. And unless your opponents are asleep at the wheel, that's not likely to be happening very often. Kefka, as an example here. I run a lot of instant speed ways to exile Kefka and bring it back. Not only does this reset for another round of discards and enters triggers for Kefka, but it also protects from like targeted removal and things like that. So that way, I'm able to then swing back with Kefka when it comes back around to my turn, or potentially transform Kefka even. Although I really think that the front half of Kefka, like, overall is stronger. I'd much rather would pay 5 mana for Kefka's text than 13 mana for the back half of Kefka's text box. But either way, it's really important just to make sure that you know how you're going to be perceived and play accordingly. I know that with Kefka, I'm going to be probably arch enemy really early on. Kefka is going to kind of rip apart people's hands, and I can easily get, over the course of like 2 turns, up to 5 even, triggers from Kefka, from ETBs and attacks and stuff like that. And that makes most people have no hand. So they're going to be doing whatever they can to use whatever few cards they do have to stop you. And you need to be ready for that.
Yes, you can't sit down with your high tier command. I was trying to think of one. And like, oh, this is a threatening card, just like you can't sit down with Urza and just be like, hey, don't pop Urza, because it's really not that big of a deal. It's like,
yeah, your Urza equipment deck is busted as fuck, and it will be met accordingly. And Joyra was who I was gonna say.
yeah.
Whether like Captain specifically.
Like, and honestly, you should. I think in some respect you should feel kind of proud of that. It's like, hey, it really takes a lot to bring this deck down. Speaking to a durability of your deck, and if you can win the 3v1 cleanly, then like big props to you. But it doesn't feel like people are trying to play in that mindset. I also have a example of that with Green Goblin. Once the Goblin comes down, and my mana comes back up, of course, another turn rotation, unfortunately. But it's kind of hard to stop it once it gets going. It's like, yeah, you can counter whatever spell I'm throwing at you, but most of the time I'm throwing something super cheap at you. Like, I'm paying 1 for Seize the Spoils. I'm paying, well, still paying like fucking 5 to search for a card.
It's 4.
Oh yeah, it's 4 for searching a card, but I still think this card is good. Gaining a draw off and then searching for a card, I don't think it's that bad of a deal.
Yeah, I do think that Diabolic Tutor, if it had the text draw card stapled onto it, would be a much better Magic card, and that's what this turns into for you.
Yes. Crap, I forgot the topic we were on.
Build for how you're going to be perceived.
Oh yeah, build for how you're going to be perceived. But I also still have like cheap counter spells, because I'm gonna need them. People are probably gonna be hard on my ass for coming back. Like, I feel like sometimes in this deck, if I get my turn again, the game is going to be over, and my opponent is aware of that, and I'm not going to misjudge my opponent's intelligence and be like, oh, they're not gonna try to win the game. They don't care about taking the dub here. Yes, we've been sitting here for 4 hours. Nah, they don't want to win. So remember that you have opponents. You have 3 of them, and what they do and how their deck is built really matters.
And that ties into the next point incredibly well of making sure that you have diverse removal. Like you mentioned, you have counter spells, and then you also have kill spells in Green Goblin. It's really important to be able to have multiple different types of ways to deal with different types of things. And the more like things that your removal can hit, the better you're usually going to feel about it. That's why Beast Within and Generous Gift, 2 cards that you can't run in Green Goblins, I don't know why I'm talking about them now, are awesome because it says destroy target permanent. So it gets rid of pretty much every card type except for instants and sorceries or things on the stack. And that's a great place to kind of be sitting at as your baseline for removal as well. Sometimes there are problematic lands. When I first started playing Commander, I didn't know about this card until my friend busted out, called Glacial Chasm. And basically prevents all damage dealt to him, or it might be just combat damage, but it reduces damage to 0. And it has cumulative upkeep of pay 2 life. And I had just creature win cons with no ways to blow up lands. So as soon as he played Glacial Chasm, I could try and sit it out and see how long it would take him to eventually sack it, and not pay the cumulative upkeep cost. And the thing is that he was running it in the Gitrog monster, so he could sack it whenever he wanted to, and then get it straight back. And it would suck ass, and...
Synergy.
Yeah, exactly, synergy. Synergy to the fucking max.
Right.
And that's another reason why it's important to have diverse removal, is that you need to be able to handle whatever's going to stop your deck from being able to work.
Yes, I have my Rafine deck has better removal options in it. It has exile target creatures target spells on it. So and exile is such a huge thing because I have a pet peeve, especially when I'm playing Rafine. What's that called? The Fang Breaker. Yeah,
Codis the Fang Breaker.
Yes, he is. He just sits there and takes all your stuff. And
he's indestructible.
Exactly. So if you just have your destroy spells and you miss the counter window, yeah, you kind of just let him steal your stuff. So, and I'm surprised you didn't mention the best removal spell in the game, Swords to Plowshares. But Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile. What was crap? Now I want to pull this card up because I really like it.
Well, while he's pulling that up, I was more at that moment talking about removal that hits multiple different things.
Yeah.
Whereas Swords and Path, they only hit creatures, but they're still diverse in the fact that they exile, and that means that you can get around death triggers. That means that you can get around, like Indestructible with Codis as well. Like Indestructible, people like to clown on Indestructible as not being that big of protection. The thing is that there's a lot of really good destroy spells, like Void Rend. Void Rend hits a lot of things, and it can't be countered. That's awesome, but it also only destroys, meaning that it does not hit Codis. Whereas Swords, on the other hand, is very narrow. It only hits creatures. But the thing is that it's going to hit whatever creature you need it to, unless it's got hexproof. And in that case, you need a board wipe, probably.
Yes.
And the thing is that a lot of board wipes, at least, aren't exile, they are destroy, which means that they don't hit Codis. So you need to have diverse removal for what your opponents can be doing. The thing is that you don't know who you're going to be facing when you play Commander. There's not like a real meta unless you have a dedicated play group, and even then, they can build new decks. They can play other decks, depending on the matchup. And you really just need to think about the fact that you need to be ready for whatever could be thrown. And that the more diverse your removal suite is, the more likely it is that you're going to have something that can handle an issue.
Because I was thinking of Utter End, but there's another card. Rite of Oblivion, I think, is another really good card. Because I think it exiles. Yeah, exiles target non-land permanent. So anything that's not a land, just hey, you're not getting this back, brother. Or if you have hexproof, then get fucked. But anyway, that's not the point here. And then it also has Flashback, which is again plays into my discard vibe. So either I'm getting double Rite of Oblivion, or I'm discarding Rite of Oblivion for value and then recasting it, still getting its practical use off. I also do run where are my board wipes at?
Up
Up,
further.
yeah, because they're gonna be. Yes. Okay. So I thought I ran 3 board wipes, but apparently I only run 2. But whatever, really. So I specifically run Nightmare Unmasking. One, because I think it came in the precon that I had, and I just kind of transferred it over. But also because at most of the time I can actually use it where it doesn't disrupt my board too much. Honestly, as long as I can keep Rafine on field, my board is probably okay. Like I said, it's built to, once Rafine is on field, to then just control the board. So as long as I have the ability to draw through my deck and play my cards, then I don't really care about what's going on with my opponent's stuff, because I usually can find an answer. And Austere Command is just, it's just a really good board wipe in my opinion.
It's diverse.
Yeah.
It's multiple different things, and you can customize it to whatever is most important for you. With Rafine, you're usually not going to be hitting the destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less, because that hits a lot of your creatures. But that also means that the 4 greater option is almost free
Exactly.
for you.
And do you know how many dangerous creatures are mana value 4 or more?
Joyra, Urza, Joda, just to name a few.
Exactly.
Moving into the next section is making sure that you play test your deck properly. Before I ever buy a deck in paper, I play test on Mox Field rigorously. I go through, depending on the deck, sometimes up to like turn 7, 8, 9, kind of seeing where things go, how things end up, if I'm undisrupted, which is fine as a place to start, but that should not be your only thing you're doing. You should also be playing around when your commander is like destroyed, or when your best piece is removed. What is your game plan then? How are you going to navigate that? Because that's going to happen. You're not just going to become a threat, nobody stop you, and then you just win the game. That's just not feasible or realistic at all. And I think assuming that your best piece gets destroyed every turn or so is like a really good way to try and figure out, what am I going to do? It really then promotes you trying to hit multiple spells in a turn, so that way you have more things to do, so that way it's harder to get removed. Or hell, you can even assume a board wipe is cast if you've got a big enough board, and then thinking about, well, how do I recover from a board wipe? Because those get cast. Not everyone runs 30 board wipes, but people run 2, 3, 4, 5 in a lot of cases, and with enough card draw, they're going to hit one eventually. And you need to figure out, how do you work around that, and you need to know how to navigate that.
Yes, and also, I think having a natural play pattern to go around that is great, because you're not gonna have, like, if all 3 of your opponents have a kill spell for whatever your target piece is, and you're probably not gonna have an out to that. Like, remember, you still have 3 opponents. That, and I think that's like a big thing people forget, is there are 3 of them, and they're not just here for you. They're here from themselves. They came to this table to win this game. They built this deck to win the game. Like Rafine here is priced at $223. I'm not slapping down that type of money just to watch you play solitaire with your $300 deck.
Exactly. I want to play, not necessarily solitaire, but I want to be able to make my plays, and the goal is to try and win for me. And I'm not just going to let you win. I'm going to try and stop you, because my goal is to win.
Yes. So plan on the terrible interaction that's going to happen. Sometimes when I'm playtesting, I don't take like the initial draw, or if you have to take the mulligan while you're playtesting, take the actual mulligan.
Yes.
Mulligan is not bad in a game. First of all, believe that your deck is going to give you a good hand. And also just having 7 cards, having 7 bland cards is not better than having 5 really good cards. Like, if your hand is like 5 lands and 2 like key pieces that come down way later, like, put that ish back. Put it back, get a new hand, get your momentum going. Because momentum is key.
Yes. Oftentimes, the people who win commander games are the people who spent most of their mana during the turn cycle that they got that mana. And wasting turns playing land, 4-drop is horrible unless your opponents did that, which, guess what? They're probably not doing. If somehow land is your strategy, I'd love to see that pop off for you. But something tells me that it's not. I don't know. So in my heart of hearts, I don't believe that's true. And really, like, with Magic, with especially with Commander, your mulligan is a resource, and you shouldn't be afraid to take that. That's a whole free 7 cards that you're giving up the chance to look at because you think, oh, I guess I can work with this hand. No, you shouldn't be guessing if you can work with a hand or not. You should feel confident in your hand. One, you should make sure that your deck is built to give you good opening hands. But if you end up having to take the mulligan because luck happens, sometimes you get your high cost stuff and a bunch of lands. Mulligan that. You should be taking your free mulligan, and honestly, going down to 6 and even 5 isn't the worst thing in the world. Especially if you get an incredibly good hand with those 5. The fact that you still get to see 7 cards, and then you choose to put back once you've hit that 5 and stuff like that, is really powerful. That you actually have all of that whole card selection there.
And speaking of a 5-card hand, back to Rafine. Like, okay, so if I have like 3 lands and like if I mulligan down to 5 and I have 3 lands and 2 low cost creatures, I'm keeping that. It's like I'm on curve. Once Rafine does come down, my battle strategy is already there. And also I have a draw commander. So also the natural 2 to 3 draws that I'm getting from just, natural play also helps out. Also, don't forget. I know we just said mulligan for a good hand, but in Green Goblin, he's a 4-drop. So but I will mulligan down to like just having two lands and like an artifact in hand, cause I kind of just. But I believe in the ratio of cards that I put into my deck. That by the time I'm like, I don't have a turn 3 land drop, but by the time that I've gotten there, I have the mana that I needed to make my deck go.
Between the lands and then the insane amount of mana rocks that you have, it really helps to pad up the the low amount of cards in hand that
Yes.
you're willing to go down to as well.
Yes.
And it's also okay to be wrong about a card or maybe even wrong about a deck. When this comes into playtesting, when you see your deck isn't coming together very well, or maybe a card is something that you aren't really wanting to cast. Zuko is going to be the thing I'll be talking about here because I wanted to build a new version of my Living End, but in Commander deck. However, I found that the Mardu Wedge, I think is what
Yeah.
Mardu is, doesn't lend itself well to the way I built my other one. If you noticed, I have nothing under 3 mana in my Living End, but in Commander deck, because I don't want to hit anything but Living End when I Cascade, and all of my Cascade spells are 3 mana. So that way I'm guaranteed to hit it no matter what. And there just aren't really the Cascade spells to do that exact same thing. I actually have to build it around mana value 4 for this, which will let me hit either Demonic Dread to then hit Living End, or I'll just hit Living End first. One or the other. But losing green really makes most of my haste enablers worse, and losing green has me lose another one of the best Cascade spells as well. So Zuko is going to be a deck that I'm probably just going to be deleting off of. Actually, I said I was going to do this. I'm deleting Zuko off of my page now because I've decided that I'm not going to continue with Zuko because it just does not work the way I want to. And honestly, you should be okay with doing this for decks in paper as well. Sometimes they just don't work, and you have to get rid of them. And please be okay with doing that.
Yes, there's a saying that destruction leads to creation. So destroy your old decks to create new ones. I run a Tulane deck, and I've had that deck for a while now. So I have some pretty good like mana ramp in it. I have the shock lands, and I think I have like one or two crap. I'm trying to think fetch lands in there. I don't think any other deck has that treatment that I currently have, because I'm also not spending money on those cards because those cards are kind of expensive. But one day if I do decide to destroy that deck and having that mana base will be nice to put it into something else, or just reshaping the entire idea I have of Tulane. Like I know, Kaiser does this. Kaiser does this often, because he only plays the same colors. He doesn't play any different colors. If it doesn't have black in it, he's probably not gonna play it.
I was gonna say every deck we've looked at has had black in it.
He will often, if he's not playing a deck anymore, he will take the key pieces out, or take the correct themed cards out, and then just switch it into another deck. So it's like he still has the same vibes, but either in a stronger or a more enjoyable play style for him.
Yeah, probably the best example of this is actually Baitor. And the reason I say this is really because of Blex. I used to have a Blex deck where it was all about casting the back half of Blex. And basically just using that as a draw spell and actually putting cards in my hand, but also putting whatever I need to in the graveyard. So I would run a lot of life linkers to keep my life total high, so I can actually keep more cards and not have to put stuff in the graveyard if I don't want to. And then when Baitor was shown off, I was like, this is it. This is my favorite color combo. This is finally a commander that does what I want this color combo to have done for a long time. And I took Blex apart and merged it into Baitor.
And now we have a new disaster at our table, which is called Baitor. But it's all good, clean fun. We need high powered shit.
I was looking through, and yeah, there are quite a few black decks. I think black is one of the more common. Looks like also red's pretty common. I'll have to actually count it up. There are some not black decks up here though, but a lot of the not black decks aren't decks I actually own in paper. They're just ones that I have theory crafted and stuff. So you got a point there.
Don't worry, it just means you're insane and selfish.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
As we go back to Kefka.
Yeah, I know. But this is another one I wanted to talk about where it's like it's okay to be wrong. And in my initial build for Kefka, I didn't have stuff like Momentum Breaker or Shieldred's Edict. I had the creatures that would come in and make each player sack a creature. And even though I already had stuff like Firebrand Archer that deals damage when I cast my non-creature spells. Granted, it was partially because it's what I had on hand, but it was also what I first thought would work well in the deck. And upon playtesting through, I always felt bad playing those because they didn't trigger my mage, they didn't trigger the Emperor, they didn't trigger Firebrand Archer, they didn't trigger this. It's like, these spells are doing less because they're creatures. Let's put the non-creature versions in, so that way I'm not going to have this issue anymore.
Yes, listen to that voice in the back of your head that's like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Figure out what's going on and get rid of it. Usually if you've drawn to a card and this is like the third time you're seeing it's dead after multiple either multiple playtests or multiple games, you probably should cut it.
Exactly. You really need to ask yourself at that point, why am I still running this card? And if you can't come up with a good reason, then you should probably cut it.
Yes. Also, having one really niche situation where this card will work does not count as a good reason.
That is correct. Just because, I can do this with... Just because you can target your opponent with Ancestral Recall and have them deck out if their library is empty is not a reason to keep Ancestral Recall in your deck.
Until
you keep Ancestral Recall in your deck because it draws you 3 cards for 1 mana.
Until they cast Lab Man at instant speed.
They're not going to get that one. That's so funny. But the last thing to kind of round things off is that you should really make sure you're using resources properly. And by resources, I mean stuff like EDH Rec, Mox Field, Tapped Out, Architect. I was trying to think of that one. I couldn't remember that one. You really should make sure that you're using them properly and to their best advantage. You're not going to be best suited just copying whatever the top 100 cards on EDH Rec is for a commander. The way I like to use EDH Rec, if I am going to be using it, is I'm going to use it to kind of see if I've thought of a commander, what themes are people building around commonly, or do any of these themes strike me, or is this what I thought of when I decided this commander? Did I have a theme in mind and then I'm seeing, oh, other people have done this, what kind of things are they including in this, to give you like an idea and a baseline to start with. And then I also love using EDH Rec when I'm towards the end of my deck building, where say I've got maybe like 90 cards, I've got all my lands included, and I still have 10 that I'm just unsure of what to do or what these could be. EDH Rec helps you fill in, with, oh, these cards are being played very popularly, probably for still a decent reason. It's not saying that, these EDH Rec people, or the EDH Rec, like, top cards are bad. It's just that you should make sure that they work with what your deck wants to do, rather than just putting them in because they're at the top. If your deck falls outside of the 90% of people who run Sol Ring in the deck, initially, maybe that was for a good reason. Maybe it's because the way you've built it, you don't want to hit a low drop artifact ever at all for some reason, or you have the ramp taken care of elsewhere, or you really need the colors. There's a lot of reasons to not play Sol Ring in a deck, if we're being really honest here. Of course, a lot of reasons to play it as well, but just because it's high up doesn't mean it needs to be ran.
You heard it here first. Sol Ring is trash.
I took it out of the Jund land precon. It always felt bad. It's not a land, it's an artifact, and so I cut it. Although I will say, on the record, I am a Sol Ring hater. It should be either banned or a game changer. I'm not going to back down from this. Fight me in the comments if you want.
Don't ban Sol Ring. Let's stay busted. You know what? Let's push for more busted stuff. You know what? We need more Vivies. We need more.
I don't even run Sol Ring in Kefka, so see, I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about.
As you can also see, he doesn't run Vivi, so that does make him a scrub.
Well, Vivi would be expensive.
Oh, that's another thing I don't think we hit on. So I used to hate this. I hated sitting down at a table with this was with Chulane, and I was already talked about how I have where my Chulane deck is a little bit more expensive than the rest of my decks. Also on Motsfield, do not believe these prices that you see. I do not actually pay this much for these decks. These are fantasy shits.
I've seen him play this card. I've seen him play this card.
Bro, no one runs Armageddon.
I've seen you play this card.
Bro, get off my EDH Rec. See, this is EDH. You can't prove. Anyway, get the fuck off.
What? You're talking about the deck.
Yes, but you're also defacing me at the same time. But anyway,
See.
Shit.
See. Oh, that's not expensive.
Exactly. But yes, these are actual lands that I run. But also I picked these up from certain places. I kind of, the way I think about it, I kind of did the Pokemon trainer thing of, oh, it's here now. Let me go ahead and grab it. I remember when I picked up Spark Double, it was because it was during a time when okay, yeah, my boy Spark Double. Yeah, that's a $12 card. I know $12 doesn't seem like a lot, but that's $12 flipping dollars for cardboard. Let's be real here.
Yeah, that's a lot for two broke dudes.
Exactly. So, I'm sorry, I just forgot that we're broke. Yeah, that's another reason why I build on Motsfield to live the fantasy of someone that can actually make this shit.
Why do you think I have 20 decks on Mox? I have maybe half of those in paper.
It's facts. But yeah, I was just in a card shop and I was like, you know what? I can pick up Spark Devil right now. Like I actually had to check the bank account first, but yeah, I can pick up these cards right now and have good fun with them. It doesn't push the power level of my deck too high. And matter of fact, perfect example is my Boros Tokens deck. I built it a few months before what's the set that Elspeth came out in?
Tarkir Dragon.
Yes, Tarkir. And Kaiser here just happened to pull it when
Been in the deck with.
that's because it's been forever since. See, also this deck is $849.
Holy shit!
Exactly. So also I'm not.
I'm starting to see why.
Yeah. Yeah. See, my mana base is.
Oh no, this is why.
Oh yeah, that's
you have
awesome.
Plateau in the fucking.
Yeah. So yeah, I build these decks to to escape the fantasy of being broke.
When I was looking at this deck earlier, I did not notice the $850 price tag, by the way. My eyes shot out of my head when I saw that.
But yeah, that's also why my mana base is usually the last thing that I make.
Yeah.
But shit, what the fuck were we talking about?
Oh, Elspeth.
Oh yeah, so and he just happened to pull it, and if Elspeth wasn't like right there in front of my face, also he didn't have a proper deck to put Elspeth in at the time.
Yeah.
So
I had sadly already taken apart my green-white tokens deck, which I need to rebuild. That is getting rebuilt. I'm excited to play Amara again.
yeah, that deck was annoying. Fuck that shit. But anyway, if it wasn't like right there in my face, I probably wouldn't have to pick up Elspeth. Like, when the fuck am I gonna pick this up? When the hell am I ever gonna actually get this card?
See, that's when you take the Forest Plains that always comes in tapped, use Sharpie off, comes in tapped, you Sharpie off the name, and put Plateau up there, and call it a day.
Big facts. Oh, one thing about our deck building philosophies, we personally don't do proxies.
Yes.
No, we don't have anything against proxies. Like,
also yes.
Yes, like, look, this card is $400 fucking dollars.
It's almost half of the fucking cost of your deck.
Yeah, if your deck gets stolen, I don't want you to be like, ah, crap, like someone just stole like a rent payment from me.
Exactly. It's like, for real, if like talk to your whoever you're playing with, though. Of course, make sure it's known if you have proxies. But the thing is that EDH, at least, like, the higher powers EDH you get, the more proxy friendly people are. CEDH was the most proxy friendly group of people that I had ever played games with, and that you will ever play games with, even because as you get lower and lower power level, people do not like proxies. Now, and again, we don't like proxies, but we don't like proxies in our decks. The only thing I've ever proxied was Baitor, and that was because when it was first previewed and I saw it, I was like, this is the perfect commander deck for me and for what I want to do for my gameplay style. So I just wrote the text on the card, and I had a copy or like a picture saved on my phone, so that way I can easily show somebody what my commander does, read it to them, and things like that, so that way it wasn't obtrusive to play around. And that was because also I was waiting for the set to come out. And then once the set came out and I could actually order one for myself, I did.
Why don't you have a copy of this card? It legitimately does not exist yet.
Exactly. It just has not been printed, but I know I'm building the deck and I want to get actual games in, so I know what I need to work on and change in real games.
Yes.
That's probably the only time I actually have jump-started the purchasing of a deck a bit quicker than normal. But that's also because this is my favorite color combo. This is probably the color combo that I've had the most experience playing decks with as well. and so I knew that I was going to be happy with the general play pattern, but I just needed to see how does the one new card that doesn't exist yet play into this deck.
In fact, um, so I think kind of what represents our philosophy and just kind of the whole video is follow your heart, but be practical.
Yes, yes. If you want to make something work, you can almost always make it work, but you need to make sure you're level-headed when thinking about it, and that you're not missing the big picture.
Yes, like if you're playing your if you want to play your super cool combo deck that dies to like your key piece being killed, you can do that, but realize that is what you're doing, and your opponent is going to interact with your deck.
Francisco and Malcolm, I don't have the deck list up here actually, mostly because I didn't build the deck from scratch myself. I got the idea from somebody else and made made a few tweaks to it. But it it is a combo deck with Time Sieve. So if Time Sieve is taken out, or if Malcolm is taken out, then those are like the two big pieces that give me what I need to do to take infinite turns and kill the table. That's why I run a buku fucking number of counter spells. Like I think I'm at like 13 or 14. So because that's what they are for. They are for protection for my stuff, because of how central it is. So long as you're building with a proper mindset and understanding of how the game can and likely will go, you're probably going to be fine.
Yeah. Commander is somewhat more about understanding yourself than it is about understanding your opponent. But still understand who the hell your opponent is.
At least understand that you have opponents, and you need to understand that they're not gonna just sit idly by.
Yes. Like, imagine that though. Like, everyone is just sitting down, playing their own combo piece, not actually interacting with one another.
At that point, it's just, if it's like combos, it's whoever the fastest deck is. Oftentimes, even being whoever goes first has the better chance of winning.
Exactly.
And that's not fun.
And that's, like, this is getting off topic, but that's a very weird thing that I see in the community is people don't like it when other people are playing solitaire, but they expect you to let them play solitaire. So, let's get away from that mindset, people.
Yeah. Well, any closing thoughts?
No, not really.